a simple Canadian pastor's daughter,
Oh, yeah.
married to the most wonderful man in all the world for 50 years, who, when she was 15 years old, decided to make a commitment of her life to surrender everything she had to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Jesus has performed many miracles in my life. I was actually born deaf in one ear. And then I had a disease that was slowly eating its way to my brain, which was eventually going to kill me. And so when I was about 5, the doctors told my parents they needed to do surgery on me, and the surgery would save my life, but it would leave me deaf in the other ear. Jesus miraculously not just healed me in the one ear, but both ears were opened, and I've never had a problem hearing since. I know that Gary was my God assignment in life, and we all have a God assignment in life, but he was mine. And while I was praying, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, he spoke to me and he said, Marilyn, yes, let your answer here, just like your yes when you were 15 was that you would do anything I wanted you to do. Let your answer be yes here, because I want you to help this man to be everything that I've created him to be. So I was a woman on a mission to not be distracted from the call of God in my life and to serving that call of God in my life. One of the core values that we have at Watoto is excellence, and many people mistake excellence for perfection. There's not a human being on this planet that can ever reach perfection. There's only one perfect, Jesus.
Yes.
But excellence, I came to understand what excellence really is. It's over and above, beyond what is required. So in my God assignment with Gary, I determined in my heart, I'm going to go over and above, beyond what is required, whether I'm thanked, whether I'm not thanked, whether I'm praised, whether I'm blamed, it doesn't matter. I'm going over and above, beyond what is required. Never despise the days of small beginnings. Doesn't matter how big, how influential, how important, never despise the days of small beginnings, because Jesus takes those small beginnings, and if you're faithful, he will grow them into something absolutely magnificent that will give glory and honor to his name.
Welcome to this episode where I get the privilege and the honor to sit down with a woman that many of us desire to be with, a woman that has inspired many in her role in her lifetime, and that is none other than Pastor Marilyn Skinner. I know she didn't want me to call her pastor, but you and I will agree in this episode that I'll call her Pastor Marilyn. You're welcome, Pastor Marilyn.
Thank you so much, Renata. It's beautiful and wonderful and a privilege to be with you today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Yeah. Pastor Marilyn is pastor at Watoto Church. She's the beautiful wife of Pastor Gary Skinner. Many of you know Pastor Gary that we hosted before. And I have the honors to have her speak to us regarding her journey at Watoto. This month, Watoto is celebrating 40 years of ministry. And there couldn't be any other better person to tell the story, to tell the experiences, the moments, the fulfilling moments. And it's just what we want to hear. But before we go through that, Pastor Marilyn, who is Marilyn?
Who is Marilyn?
Yeah.
A simple Canadian pastor's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Married to the most wonderful man in all the world for 50 years.
50.
Who, when she was 15 years old, decided to make a commitment of her life to surrender everything she had to the Lordship of Jesus Christ and say, Jesus, I will go anywhere. I will do anything. I will say anything. I will be anything you want me to be. Just receive glory through my life.
Yes. Pastor Marilyn, that's amazing. What are some of the moments in your childhood that you remember that have become pivotal to who you've become?
Well, there have been many moments. I had the privilege of being born into a pastor's family.
Yes.
So I don't ever remember a time in my life when I didn't know about Jesus and I wasn't taught about him and that he had a plan for me, and I wasn't inspired and provoked to give him my everything. Jesus has performed many miracles in my life. I was actually born deaf in one ear. And then I had a disease that was slowly eating its way to my brain, which was eventually going to kill me. And so when I was about 5, the doctors told my parents they needed to do surgery on me, and the surgery would save my life, but it would leave me deaf in the other ear. And so, like I said, my dad was just a simple man of God, but he believed what the Bible says, and he believed that if you lay hands on the sick, they will recover. And I can remember as a little girl, the night before the surgery, my father called me up to the front of the church. Now, he never pastored more than 150 people in his life, but he called me up and he laid hands on me and he said, "Dear Jesus, when my little girl goes in for surgery tomorrow, when the doctors perform the surgery, may they only find scar tissue of where the disease has been." So they took me to the hospital, put me to sleep. 30 minutes later, the surgeon came out and told my mother, "You can take her home when she wakes up." All we found was scar tissue of where the disease was. Jesus miraculously not just healed me in the one ear, but both ears were opened, and I've never had a problem hearing since. So that was a pivotal moment in my life because I realized, man, God is a God of miracles, and if God can do that for me, he is worth serving. Another pivotal moment was when I was 16. I had always played the piano. My parents started teaching me piano lessons when I was very young. I actually started playing in worship services when I was 9 years old. And when I was 16, an evangelist came to our church, and he had this dream of putting a rock band together. He had a big truck, the side wall folded down into a platform, and he was going to go to beaches, parks, tourist areas during the summer months. And he had put together a whole bunch of college students.
Yeah.
But he asked my dad if I could go and be the keyboard player. I was only 16 at the time. And my dad said yes. Well, about a month before we were ready to go on that band, I was still in secondary school. My parents went away and left me at home all alone. Now, because I had taken piano lessons, I had to practice for 2 hours every day. And so I had an arrangement with my mom. I didn't have to do any chores at home as long as I practiced the piano every day.
Yeah.
I think that was a good deal, don't you, Renata?
Oh, yes.
Well, my parents were away and I got hungry. And I decided to make myself some French fries chips. So I didn't know how to make them. So I went and I got a pot and I got some lard, some kimbo, and I put just a little bit of kimbo in the pot. And so I put it on the stove and I saw all this black smoke coming out of it. But the kimbo wasn't boiling, so I thought it wasn't hot enough yet. And then all of a sudden the pot burst into flames. And I did the worst thing that you can ever do with a grease fire. I took it to the sink, turned the cold water tap on, and it literally exploded. Literally, it blew the kitchen window out of our house. It set all my parents' cupboards on fire. And I had reached my hand into the fire to turn the tap on, and I reached my hand back into the fire to turn the tap off. Well, I ended up with 3rd-degree burns from my fingers all the way up to about here. I was in the hospital, I was drugged, I was in a lot of pain. I didn't know this, but the doctors told my parents that I would never be able to play the keyboard again because some of my flesh was burned to the bone, my muscles had been burnt away, and they said, it's just not going to happen. I'm supposed to go on this rock band 30 days later.
I know.
The night before they took the bandages off, my simple little pastor's dad again, he put his hand on my arm and he said, "Dear Jesus, when they take the bandages off my little girl tomorrow, may her skin be like that of a baby's skin." And when they took the bandages off, I did not have a scar, Renata, on my hands. Not a scar. That's a miracle.
It is. It is a miracle.
So I went 2 weeks later, joined that rock band, and guess who the guitar player was on that rock band?
It must be Pastor Gary.
It was Pastor Gary. He was what I say, a long-haired freaky dude. He had hair back then. It's all kind of disappeared in the last 50 years. But he was the guitar player and the lead singer. And I know that Gary was my divine destiny.
Wow.
I know that Gary was my God assignment in life. And we all have a God assignment in life, but he was mine. And whenever you have a God assignment and a divine destiny, the enemy comes against you and tries to thwart that plan. Yeah. And I think that fire with my fingers being burned was the enemy's plan to stop me from going and meeting
my God assignment.
Wow.
You mentioned something so strong there, that Gary is your assignment. What do you mean?
Okay. I had never had a boyfriend before. When I was 15, I made a commitment to give everything to Jesus. I remember being at a youth camp, and I can never underestimate the power and the influence of youth camp, because that's where a lot of divine destinies are realized, is at youth camp. So I was at youth camp, and there was a preacher there, and I remember him saying, some of you're going to go to foreign countries, and you're going to spill your blood on the soil of foreign countries. Some of you, God may even take your life. And then I remember him looking out into the crowd and saying, are you willing to be that one? And I put my hand up, and I said, yes. Never underestimate the power of your yes and the power of a raised hand. So I said yes, and I went forward, and I got down on my knees, and I said, Lord, I will do anything. And I was reminded of a verse in Luke chapter 6. And it said, if you want to be my disciple, this is what you've got to do. You have to take the things that are dearest and best to you, whether plans or people, and kiss them goodbye. And so that night when I was 15, I took all the plans that I had for my own life. I took all the people that were relationships in my life at that time, my mother, my father, my sisters, my relatives, my friends, and I kissed them goodbye. Now, that doesn't mean I never had anything to do with them again, but I said, Jesus, your plans, your purposes for my life are more important to me than anything that I have.
Yeah.
So I was on a mission. I was a woman on a mission. And Gary says you never mess with a woman on a mission.
Yeah.
So I was a woman on a mission to not be distracted from the call of God in my life and to serving that call of God in my life. So we were on this rock band. And one day I had just turned 18. Gary came to me and he goes, Marilyn, I have something I want to tell you. Stay behind after the rest of the team leave. So I said, okay, I wonder what this is. And he looked at me and he said, do you know, I love you. Wow. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And I looked at him and I said, get behind me, Satan. You are distracting me from fulfilling my mission. God assignment. Okay. He said, no, I'm really serious. I want you to, we were about to have a break, a 2-week Christmas break. He said, would you go home and would you pray about it? So I said, well, I want to be a woman of prayer, so yes, I'll go home and pray about it. And while I was praying, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, he spoke to me and he said, Marilyn, yes, let your answer here, just like your yes when you were 15 was that you would do anything I wanted you to do, let your answer be yes here, because I want you to help this man to be everything that I've created him to be. Wow. So at 18 years old, I realized that I had a new God assignment, and that was to help Gary Mark Skinner, 71-year-old man today, be everything that God had destined him to be when he was still in his mother's womb.
Amazing. It's truly amazing to hear that. I mean, being a helper, being a wife, being called a wife, and you take it as an assignment, I think it's something very incredible. Many of the wives don't really consider husbands as an assignment. Yeah. It's like another partner, another person in my life, but not an assignment. What does it mean for something to be an assignment? What do you do?
What do you do when you have an assignment at school? Huh?
Yeah.
You do all the duties that you have to do to pass your assignment. If you don't hand in your assignment, you're not going to pass the course, are you? You're not going to receive a commendation at the end of your school term or at the end of that assignment. Well done, right? So in order to have an assignment, you've got to do everything that you know is right.
Yes.
You've got to do everything that you know you should do, even when you don't want to do it. I remember in school, I didn't like doing assignments. They required discipline. Assignments required me giving up things that I really wanted to do. I would much rather be out with my friends than writing my assignment, right?
Yeah.
And the same is true in a marriage when you look at your husband as your God assignment. Basically, you don't become a doormat, but basically you have to put your own needs, desires, wants secondary, okay? And put the needs of your assignment first. And then what do you receive?
Reward for
Well
yourself.
done. And any assignment, any job, anything that I want to do, I want to give it my best. I don't want to do second rate.
Yeah.
One of the core values that we have at Watoto is excellence. And many people mistake excellence for perfection. There's a big difference between excellence and perfection. There's not a human being on this planet that can ever reach perfection. There's only one perfect, Jesus.
Yes.
But excellence, I came to understand what excellence really is. It's over and above, beyond what is required. So in my God assignment with Gary, I determined in my heart, I'm going to go over and above, beyond what is required, whether I'm thanked, whether I'm not thanked, whether I'm praised, whether I'm blamed, it doesn't matter. I'm going over and above, beyond what is required. And just like any assignment, if you put in the hard work, hey, it's hard work.
Yes, it is.
You receive a reward.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Marilyn. What I get from you is that as a wife, my husband is my assignment.
Yes, he is.
And I have to take that assignment as seriously as any assignment can be. I think that's a very great analogy to put it.
Lots of women see their children and being a mother. That's my assignment, to be a mother. I gave birth to these children. I need to raise them and nurture them. But first and foremost, you need to see your husband is your assignment. Now, that doesn't mean that you are weakened in any way. You're actually strengthened. Do you know who my number one cheerleader is and fan is?
Pastor Gary.
Yeah. I think I'm one of the most empowered women in the whole world. I honestly do, because I have been rewarded. We have no secrets in our life. In our marriage, we have always only ever had the same bank account. He knows every penny I have, and I know every penny he has. And because I took my God assignment so seriously and lived my life as a wife with integrity and humility, he trusts me. Do you know who handles all the finances in our home?
Pastor Marilyn.
Yeah. He doesn't have a clue. He trusts me so much to pay the bills, to invest the money, to do whatever. Many women think, oh, if I do that, I'm not going to be, he's going to control me. You have to earn the right to be trusted.
Oh, yeah. That's very key.
Now, Gary is a good man.
Oh, yes.
And he earned the right for me to trust him, right?
Yeah.
There are some cases in marriages when, a husband will squander all the money or he is not trustworthy. And there's a different set of counseling that I would give to a wife who is in a circumstance like that.
Amazing. It's amazing. I mean, you and Pastor Gary are those people that many of us look up to. And learning how you've managed to get there is something that we can always and forever learn. So I want us to go back to the point when Gary told you that he was coming to Uganda, or he was taking the family to Uganda, which was deemed insecure at that time. As a wife, what was your thoughts and what was your response to that?
My response was, oh no, God, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
I'm going to be killed there.
Yeah.
I mean, the press was so bad. Like, Uganda was the second worst country in the world where the American embassy sent their staff. The second worst. I'm like, God, there's no way. I can't go there. I don't want to do this. I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be raped. My children are going to be murdered.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be safe. I didn't want to do it. But at the same time, you are going to help this man be everything you want to be. So my negotiations, my bargaining was actually not with Gary.
It was with God.
It was with God. You can't bargain with God and win. You can't. So, I had to have many moments on my knees, heart-wrenching moments, crying my eyes out, God, kind of like Jesus the night before Golgotha, where he cried to his Father and said, Lord, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me. I remember many times, God, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me.
Yeah.
And I was taken back every time to that same verse when I was 16. If you want to be my disciple, there's a difference between being a follower of Jesus and being a disciple of Jesus. A follower just has to believe in their heart and confess with their mouth. But a disciple has to do what Luke chapter 6 says, basically die to themselves.
Sure.
We didn't have a Message Bible back then. The version in the New Testament was actually, if you want to be my disciple, you have to hate. I remember reading it before we came together. Hate your father, mother, brother, sisters, even one's own children.
Yes.
And even be willing to take up your cross and die daily and follow me. And I remember saying to God, God, what kind of God are you that could ask me to hate my children? Like, I don't know if I want to serve you, God, if that's the kind of God that you are. And then I came to understand that word hate in the, King James Version does not mean hate the way we think of hate today, but it actually meant in comparison to the love and commitment that we had to Jesus. So I remember falling on my knees and saying, yes, Jesus, all over again. Yes, I love you more than all of these. So I'm willing to go anywhere. But can I be honest?
Yes, Mom.
Okay, I couldn't bargain with God and win. I knew that. But I thought, maybe I could negotiate with Gary. I can be a very good negotiator.
Yeah.
And so I made a negotiation. And I said, Gary, yes, I will go and I will help you and I will serve you. But,
Yes.
but, when we reach 1,000 people, will you take me home? And so he says, yes, Mayor, when we get 1,000 people was then KPC, I'll take you back to Canada. So we came and I worked hard. And one day he came to me and he said, Mayor, guess what? There were 1,000 people in church today. And I said, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. Are we going home? He looked at me and he said, no, I've changed my mind. When we get 5,000 people, I'll take you back to Canada. Well, listen, you think I worked at 1,000 to get 1,000 people? You have not seen work. I worked nonstop.
Yeah.
Okay, my motives were wrong. Yes, I wanted to serve Jesus, and yes, I wanted people to come to know him. But in the back of my mind was my negotiation price, 5,000 people. I got to get my negotiation price. So I worked. One day he comes to me and goes, Mayor, guess what? There were 5,000 people in church today. And I looked at him and I said, Gary, did you know that British Airways flies into Kampala now? They have their office in Kampala Road.
It's easier than...
Yeah, I even know the manager. Her name's Colette. Can I go and can I book our tickets today? He looked at me and he goes, no, I've changed my mind. I'm like, what? You're a man. You're not allowed to change your mind. He said, when we get 10,000 people in church, then I'll take you home. Okay. You know what? I stopped working because I learned a little secret.
Yes, Mom.
Again, I was reading in Luke and I read this. There's trouble ahead. I don't want trouble. Do you want trouble in your life? We all try to avoid trouble, don't we?
Yes.
This is what the Bible said. There's trouble ahead when you think you've made it, because what you have is all you'll ever get. And people strive so hard for a goal, to reach that goal. My goal had been a number of people in church, and I learned a little secret after 5,000 people. One day he comes to me and he says, Mayor, I'm a man of my word. There were 10,000 people in church today, and you can go to British Airways. I'll take you home today. And I looked at him and I said, I am home. And I've often thought back as I look over what God has done, not Gary and Marilyn, what God has done through two ordinary people who had an extraordinary commitment. He did supernatural signs and wonders. I've often thought, look what I would have missed if I had thought I had made it at 10,000 people.
Yeah.
I would have missed being mama to over 5,000 little Watoto boys and girls. I would have missed having the privilege and the honor of helping to empower and embrace over 10,000, vulnerable women. I would have missed out on being able to keep, I don't know how many tens of thousands of girls in school. I would have missed out on meeting you today.
Oh, yeah.
There's trouble ahead when you think you've made it. What you have is all you'll ever get. And even today, I'm 70 next year. Even today, I don't think I've made it. Yes, we handed over on February 3rd, 2023. But hey, life is full of seasons.
Yes.
handing over, the transition wasn't making it, wow, now I'm done. Now I'm done.
You still have a lot of work.
Yeah, we still have I still have this season of my life where I can be useful and purposeful to God. People often ask me, you worked so hard, you built up with Toto to what it is today, and now you've handed it all over. You're retired. Yeah, we're retired from that, but we have graduated into another season, and people often ask me, what is that like for you? And actually, Renata, it's the most exciting season I've ever been in, because I tell people, when we came to Uganda, we had nothing. We started with a breadcrumb in our hand, a little breadcrumb. You know what that breadcrumb was? Gary, Marilyn, Timothy, Rachel, and James, and a sound system. That was a breadcrumb.
That was the beginning.
That was the beginning. April 22nd, 1984, Crystal Suite, Imperial Hotel. That was a breadcrumb. But through faithfulness, through, like Gary often shares, through integrity and through humility and through servant leadership, that breadcrumb grew into a loaf of bread. And then it became a sack of bread. And before we knew it, we had a whole shipping load full of flour that you bake bread with. And on February 3rd last year, we handed over a shipping load full of baking flour. And you know what? What those people do with that flour is their responsibility. They can bake whatever they want, whatever God tells them. But where's Gary and Marilyn today? Back to stewarding breadcrumbs. And you should never despise the breadcrumb that you have in your hand, because isn't it amazing what God can do? Look at how he can grow a breadcrumb.
Oh, yeah.
I say, I am no longer looking for a platform. I'm not, God has blessed me. He's honored me and given me the privilege of being on some of the largest platforms in the world for women's conferences. But I'm not looking for a platform anymore. I'm looking for an open door. Gary and I are looking for open doors. And behind that open door, the other side of that open door, is our platform. So today is my breadcrumb, open door, and who knows what God's going to bring out of that.
Thank you. As you're sharing, I kept on hearing the word work. And my mind is drawn to the fact that as a pastor's wife, there's been work that you've done. And truly, some pastors' wives actually don't know the work that they need to do. You wake up one morning and you're married to this guy and he's a pastor. And there's work, they say, but I want us to break it down. What is that work that a pastor's wife should know? In your experience, 40 years now, I feel like there's so much that you can share. But briefly, could you speak to people like that using your journey and the experiences you've gone through being a pastor's wife for 40 years? What is the work?
Okay, well, I already shared, the God assignment, that's my work.
Yes.
Raising my children is my work, but to take it beyond that, that's what I think you want to know.
Yeah.
I have always wanted to be a whatever it takes girl. Even before I was married, whatever it takes means work. So for work, you know what? If the toilets in the church needed cleaning, I'm going to clean them. That's work.
That's work, yes.
If the floors need mopping, just because I'm a pastor's wife, that's not below my dignity to mop the floors. When we first started the church, we had nobody. Some people become so spiritually minded that I like to say they're no earthly good. They think the Holy Spirit is going to blow from heaven in a mighty wind and the power of God's going to come upon people and things are just going to miraculously happen. Buildings don't get painted miraculously. I mean, God could paint a building if he wanted to. He can do anything. But, when we first came to the Imperial Hotel, they had no light bulbs. So I got up on chairs and screwed light bulbs in. The toilets, Gary shared with you, vomit had to be cleaned up. I put my old work clothes on and cleaned the vomit. We brought a sound system from Canada and there were no electrical sockets to plug it in. Gary showed me how you hot wire things together to bare wires. That's work, okay? Setting chairs up, that's work. I tell our pastors' wives, you are the pastor's wife. You are the pastor from the parking lot to the pulpit. Mm-hmm. So if people need to be directed in why can't you go direct people into the parking lot? You know, when you start small, eventually you train people up to do these things. But when you're pioneering and starting, you got to do work.
Yeah.
You know, so there were the practical work things, and then there were practical things like, you know, because I was musical, I was able to do worship. So I was responsible for all of the worship. But then I realized I can't just do the worship myself. One day I'm going to be one day I'm going to be like I am today.
Oh, yeah.
70. And who's going to lead the worship? So I had to work to start to train people how to play the keyboard, how to sing, how to set up equipment, those kind of things, right? And then when we started childcare, you know, Gary's this guy that gets all the visions from God, you know, look after the children, go look after the children. Don't put them in an institution, put them in a family. So we're going to build homes with families. Okay, well, families have to have furniture, and families have to have food, and families have to have mothers. So I had to go down to the market, physically myself, sitting in the back of a pickup truck to go buy sacks of food to take to women, and then, you know, teach them how to cook certain foods. Teach them how to do things. Teach them how to clean a house. That's work. So work is actually whatever it takes for the mission to be accomplished. And, you know, mentoring. You know, yes, Gary has been a great mentor, but I also realized if Watoto is going to go to where it needs to go in the future when I'm no longer around, we have to leave a solid foundation that requires training and mentoring. So I would physically, every week without fail, I would sit with our pastors and our pastors' wives, and we called them M&Ms, Moments with Marilyn, Moments with Mama. And we would sit just like we are today for an hour, 2 hours, and I would just share with them life experiences, things that helped me be what I am today. Choirs, we sent Watoto children's choirs out. I trained the first choirs, made the first album, organized the first uniforms, practical things. You know, some people look at ministry today and they see the platform.
True.
That's all they see, the microphone. God's not interested in those kind of people. God doesn't use those kind of people. He uses people who know how to work. Okay? What did Jesus say in the New Testament? Yes, you need faith. You need faith. But how will they know that you are my disciple? How will they know when they see your good
deeds,
works?
Yes.
The works that you do. They will glorify God in heaven. So I have always wanted people to see me. I led the way in working. You know, now people look at us today, oh yeah, isn't that lovely, wonderful? You know, you can go back to a generation, you know, that are in their 40s today, and they will say, we learned to work from Auntie Marilyn.
Oh, yeah.
Because she didn't just give instructions and tell us, go do this, sitting from a chair. She actually showed us, this is how you do it, and she led the way herself.
Yeah. Amazing, truly amazing. I mean, for me, what I get there is that work is not just spiritual. It is more practical. It's on ground, doing work at the church, supporting this assignment that God has given you. I think that's a big lesson. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Marilyn. Now, can you allow me peep in the Moments with Marilyn? In the lessons that you share with the ladies at Watoto, could you pick out like 2 of them that you have so far learned in life, in ministry, in leadership, any that you feel is pivotal?
One of the very basic ones is the assignments of God are never based on ability.
Yeah.
God will bypass thousands of people with impressive ability to use someone whose heart and character is just like Jesus. I don't have ability. I never graduated from secondary school. I only went to S3. When you look at Uganda today, if you look at someone who never finished secondary school, many people think they can never be useful or good for anything. That you almost despise them, eh? And I know there's many people that will think God could never use me in a significant way because I don't have ability. That's not true.
Yeah.
The assignments of God are never based on ability. Never forget this. God will bypass thousands of people with impressive ability. You know what God's assignments are based on? Character.
Wow.
What is your character? So that's a basic lesson that I would begin with. You know, you talk about vulnerable women. They can be despised. They don't have ability. Some of them can't read or write. But they can have significant places of influence in Uganda today because they have the right character. So we have to be on a journey to mold and shape our character into being the character of Jesus. You know, I came up, and I can't remember what they all are now, but I came up with as many letters in the alphabet as they are: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, all the way up to Z. And I picked out one character attribute of Jesus and said, this is what we need to focus on. You know, A, attentive. Okay? Some people, when you get to be influential, you're not attentive to other people. That's so simple. So I would train people. This is a character trait we need to have. You need to be attentive to people, attentive to what's going around. B, bold. Don't be afraid to be bold. C, courageous. D, you could be daring. E, efficient. You know, Jesus was all of those things. Excellent. Wow. So that is one lesson. I think maybe there's so many that I could teach. Okay, I'll give you another one. Never become greedy for the veneer of silver and gold, because it can trap you. And there are many people that, you know, they get into a position, they start out servants, and then they start to get greedy. For what? Silver and gold, wealth. You know that is only a veneer.
Oh, yeah.
I like my nails. Do you like them? They're pretty nice for an old lady.
Cute nails.
But you know what? They're not real. That's just a veneer. It's a coating of paint. You know what? You put a little emery board and nail file over this is all going to come off, isn't it?
Yes.
It's going to come off in no time. And that's what silver and gold is. It's just a veneer. It's actually not the real thing in life. And if you become greedy for that, it will actually trap you and you will lose your divine destiny. I have seen so many leaders fall into the trap of being greedy for wealth. And where are they today? You know what? They're
Nowhere.
History.
Yeah, nowhere now.
They are history. They are nowhere. I guess another one that I teach them, this will be the last one. People always ask me, what are things that could destroy leadership? What are things that could cause you from not receiving well done in your God assignment? And I basically, Renata, think there are 4 things, very simple things. Envy.
Yeah.
Wanting what someone else has. Whether it's someone else's beauty, someone else's mobile phone, someone else's nails, someone else's job, someone else's husband, someone else's influence. Envy. That is wanting what someone else has. You know, God specifically tells us, don't envy. Don't covet what you don't have. Be content. What's the antidote to envy? Be content with what you have. Be thankful. You know what? God knows what you need. So if you need something, don't be envious for it. Just tell him what you need and then begin to thank him for it. So envy, that will destroy you. Jealousy. I used to always think, you know, what's the difference between envy and jealousy? There's actually a big difference. Jealousy is envy on steroids.
Really?
Jealousy is wanting what someone else has, but wishing they didn't have it. And you know, when you want what someone else has and you wish that they didn't have it, you begin to live your life and take steps into trying to take that thing away from them. Okay? And you know what that is? 3rd thing, malice. You begin to talk maliciously about them, evilly. You start to gossip, spread rumors, spread lies. You try to do everything you can to take that thing away from them so you can get it, right? And then that leads to the 4th thing, pride. Do you know what pride is, Renata? Pride is the love of your own self and your own accomplishments. And you know, Jesus said, I resist the proud. In other words, I turn my back. I'm going to push them away and I'm going to turn and walk away from them, right? I don't want Jesus to turn away from me.
Oh, yeah.
I want Jesus to come to me. I want him to welcome me and say, come.
Come on.
Pride, the love of yourself. Right? So many people are so proud of themselves and their accomplishments.
That's true.
No, he resists them. But what does he do? You can pray for grace. He says, I give grace to the Oh, give me grace, Jesus. Well, there's only one way to get grace. Humble yourself. I find it very interesting that the Holy Spirit, when he comes upon us and enters us, he gives us gifts: love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, meekness, self-control, goodness, faith. But he does not give you the gift of humility.
You humble yourself.
That's what he tells you. Humble yourself. And so how do you humble yourself? You know what? You realize, I am nothing. I'm not even a breadcrumb. I am nothing without Jesus. When you look at Watoto today, is it the mighty works of Gary and Marilyn? No. I can't do anything in my own strength. I never forget where I came from.
Yeah.
That's a help in humbling myself. I never forget who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah, sure.
Simple Canadian pastor's daughter. Who's Gary? You know, a simple missionary kid, born in Zimbabwe, raised in Zambia and South Africa. Who am I? Nothing. What can I take my next breath if Jesus doesn't give it to me?
No.
I can't. So you have to learn to humble yourself. And then what happens?
God will lift you.
In the sight of God and man.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Pastor Marilyn. What I pick is that, in fact, I'd never looked at it like that. So it starts with envy, jealous, malice, and pride. Very amazing. I used to look at them as separate entities, but how they all grow slowly in you. And by the time you're proud, you're all of those things, and it's so bad. You mentioned something, Pastor Marilyn, and you mentioned in your story that you didn't actually graduate with university. How was that about? Could you briefly take us in your journey?
Well, we'll go back to the rock band this summer that we traveled together. Everybody else was college students except for me. I was in S2 at the time. And so then we saw thousands of young people, thousands of youth give their lives to Jesus. This was back you wouldn't even remember it, the hippie movement. You know, I don't know if you watched the movie, The Jesus Revolution, but it was about how God poured out his spirit in North America in the 70s. Well, this evangelist decided that he didn't want to just do it as a summer outreach, but he wanted to do it full time.
Yeah.
And go to high schools and just do ministry. And so all the rest of the team were going back, and he really wanted me to go back to play the keyboard. So one day I go to my father and I say, Daddy, Jesus has called me to be an evangelist. He's called me to go and be on this rock band and to help minister to drug addicts and to prostitutes. So I'm going to quit school and go do it. And my dad looked at me and he goes, oh, Marilyn, I am so thankful that Jesus has called you into the ministry, but I can't let you go until you give me a secondary school diploma. Now you have to understand, I loved my father and I was respectful to my father and I wanted to obey him and honor him. So I was like, okay, I'm going to obey you. I won't disobey you. So me and God had a few conversations and I'm like, God, I really feel you want me to do this. How am I going to do it?
Yeah.
And so I told you how I had to practice the piano. It was actually university music that I was taking, even though I was only 16. And so one day I was practicing the piano and I remembered all the certificates that I had because we had to take exams. And my certificate said, University of Toronto, passed with distinction. And I had many of them. And so without my parents knowing, I collected all of my certificates and I went to my guidance counselor at school and I said, sir, I need to graduate from your school at the end of this year and you need to help me do it. I said, sir, are these certificates worth anything towards a high school diploma? So he sent them off to our Ministry of Education in my province and he called me in 2 weeks later and he said, you won't believe it, but yes, your certificates you have enough credits to graduate from high school. So with ever going to S4, I presented my father with a high school diploma and he had no choice but to let me go. So, I have never felt inferior because I never graduated from high school. And, I believe in education. I believe education is a very important key and a very important tool we have to have education. It's important. But it doesn't mean that just because you don't. Everybody has a gift. I just happen to have a gift of music and have diplomas from a university when I was still a child.
I feel like your approach or your gift to music has contributed so much to the worship at Watoto, and it's very undeniable. Could you share a few fulfilling moments of joy in these 40 years at Watoto?
Regarding music or regarding anything?
Regarding ministry.
Okay. I'll give one. We're having this book launch on Thursday, and it's going to be a very unique book launch. People will be surprised. It's not the type of book launch people are going to be coming expecting it to have. Okay. Yes, we're going to launch the book, but the choir is going to be singing they brought tears to our eyes, literally moving music. I had nothing to do with it. I sat there and I watched a young girl who went to Bat Valley Primary School as a little girl and knew nothing, used to come up, and I just mentored her and helped her. Today, her name is Sheila Tagume. She also never went to university, but I poured everything I had into her life. She's now the creative director with her husband at Watoto. And I sat back and I watched as she took the worship and the music of Watoto to heights way beyond what I did.
Wow.
That brought me a moment of joy. Another moment of joy happened on Sunday at our Boogaloo campus. I have a lady who's like a sister to me.
I saw the video, the old lady.
The old lady.
Yeah.
And she was in university when we first came here. She was married to a very famous musician. He died of AIDS in 1994. She contracted HIV, very, very seriously ill. We didn't have access to the ARVs back then like we did. I never thought she was pregnant when her husband died. I didn't think I was ever going to live to even see her. She was going to live to give birth to the baby. Anyways, through our cells at church, they raised money to keep her alive on antiretroviral drugs. I mean, she's 60 years old today, and she just met a wonderful man from Nairobi who also lost his wife, and they're going to be getting married in July at my home in Boonga.
Wow.
And so I told people one of the saddest days of my life was when I realized she was dying of HIV. But one of the happiest days of my life was when I stood beside her at Boogaloo and introduced her to the congregation there.
Amazing, truly amazing. Thank you so much, Pastor Marilyn. Is there anything you'd want to speak maybe to somebody in ministry or a pastor's wife or somebody who looks to you as we bring this to a close?
Okay, in closing, I would say, never despise the days of small beginnings. Doesn't matter how big, how influential, how important, never despise the days of small beginnings, because Jesus takes those small beginnings, and if you're faithful, He will grow them into something absolutely magnificent that will give glory and honor to His name. And the other thing I would say, it also begins with never. Never, never, never give up. 1,000 times I wanted to give up and quit, but I don't want to be remembered as a quitter. I don't want written on my tombstone, quitter. I want written on my tombstone, she stayed at her post. So I would encourage you, stay at your post.
Thank you. Thank you. In our previous episode, Pastor Gary gave me a message to tell you that he adores you so much. And I think you look beautiful. It's very hard to tell that, you're 70 soon. So what would you tell Pastor Gary?
I would tell Pastor Gary that the greatest honor, the greatest privilege, the greatest blessing of my life is to have had him as my God assignment.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Pastor Gary will listen to this.
I'm sure he will.
Thank you so much, Pastor Mary. It was an honor having you sit down with me. I take this as a lifetime opportunity. And I truly, truly believe that what we've shared will really help many other people who are trying to get to their potential, who are discovering their assignments. Some actually don't know their assignments. Some have their assignments and want to throw them out. But hearing your story and how God has, elevated, lifted the ministry through you, we are really so thankful. So thank you for the work.
Thank you so much,
Thank
and
you
God
for the
bless you.
work. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye-bye. Please let us know your comments in the comment section. Let us know what you've learned from Pastor Marilyn. Amazing, amazing Canadian pastor's daughter. Thank you so much. Till next time. Bye-bye.